is all right. This is Soapbox After Dark. I can't sleep. When real men can't sleep, real men tend to do the news. And from my perch, sitting here looking at Earth, that's Earth in the background, that's me. This is me sitting on my perch. Everyone else has an ivory tower. I am on the goddamn moon. I see this. Take a look at this. I have an awesome telescope. This this beautiful woman who's extraordinarily pleased with herself is at a Biden rally in Iowa. And the caption is, can you just feel that energy? Can you feel it surging through the room of geriatrics as they sit there quietly waiting for Joe Biden to get onto the stage, smelling the hair of whoever's standing beside him. Joe Biden has an age problem, just like MSNBC, just like CNN and Fox News. They have a problem with age. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing. You should get support among whoever you can get support from. But as a faction of the society that is on their way out, this is clearly this group. Not a bad thing. Just saying. Now, pursuant to this, or simultaneously at the exact same time, keeping that in your head, and I know I do this, but I often find that giving a story is often inadequate in and of itself. There's often things that connect to the story that you kind of have to show. It's almost like you have to build a case. I want to show that. That's Biden support. Now, take a look at this. I was inundated with people saying, oh my God, Joe Biden has opened up a lead on Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, we thought he was... Joe Biden has opened up a lead. Joe Biden has just gotten in the race. He's opened up a lead. Oh my God. And I take a look at the poll. I'm always interested in these polls. And I'm always suspicious when I hear stuff like this, because this will be an extreme outlier. On April 30th, Joe Biden opened an impressive 24-point edge on one Mr. Bernie Sanders, with 39% of the respondents saying they supported him, with just 15% saying they supported Sanders. They reported the story this way. I am often stuck in the situation of determining or having to determine whether or not the news media is just incompetent or whether they're acting with a certain degree of intention. Because there is no way to report this story knowing what you know about this. Here's the catch. The respondents in this poll were over 50, the overwhelming majority. In fact, let me go through it in and of itself. But what it boils down to is the overwhelming majority of Sanders' support are young. He gets support across the demographics, but Sanders, if you remember, was beating Clinton and Trump with his youth support combined, meaning he was getting, in some respects, 70 and 80% of the youth vote in many of these states. That is an extraordinary number. Like, that number is mind-boggling, the number of people he was getting. So, if you do a poll, and that poll has an outsized respondents of people who are 50 and older, so much so that you shove the respondents that are, let's say, 30 and under in like one little box, because that's how few of them there in the poll, then yeah, you may get a 24% point lead on one Mr. Bernie Sanders if the only people you're talking to are geriatrics. But geriatrics are not the entirety of the country. And in this election, the youth vote is going to outsource or surpass the elderly vote. Potentially. I mean, mind you, this kind of depends on who's on the ballot. If one Mr. Bernie Sanders is on the ballot, the youth vote will outpass the current geriatric vote. Let's take a look at the poll just to go into it, because MSNBC was also presenting information that was just not true. Again, you're stuck with this notion of being, are they incompetent or are they intentionally presenting information to their audience in order to give a certain perspective of events that is not indicative of the world. I'll let you be the judge of it. The problem with this, and the problem that I have, and a lot of people have with this, is when it happens over and over and over again, incompetence is often the scapegoat, as opposed to any notion that these things are intentional mistakes. But hey, you be the judge. Incompetence or intentional, especially when this continues to happen over and over and over again. Let's take a look at the story itself. In a poll released on April 30th, Joe Biden shown an impressive 24-point edge over Mr. Sanders, with 39% of the voting saying they supported him compared to just 15% of the senator. Grit post analysis of the results found the poll largely excluded voters under the age of 50, and coming to the conclusion. Also, and look at this one. This one is awesome. The poll did not give respondents the option to offer their approval or disapproval of Sanders, even though they asked approval or disapproval of lesser-known candidates. So Senator Seth Moulton, Tim Ryan, Eric Swalwell, but they didn't ask this of Bernie Sanders. They're trying to make this point that you're asking these random nobodies who are just in this election to up their profile, but the guy who's leading the pack, you don't find it necessary to ask whether or not they're favorable or unfavorable. That's odd. That's bizarre. But let's keep going. We'd like to get your overall opinion of some of the people in the news. As I read the name, please say if you have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of these people, or if you have never heard of them. How about Joe Biden? The poll asks. How about Pete Buttigieg? How about Kristen Gillibrand? How about Tim Ryan? But no Mr. Bernie Sanders. How odd. I'm sure it was just a mistake. In the overall breakdown of how CNN SSRS poll arrived at the conclusions that Biden had 39% support to Sanders 15%, the age breakdown of respondents shows that the only data available was for ages 50 to 65. Think about that. You have a poll or you have an election where one section, meaning one of the candidates, has an outsized support among the young. And then you have a poll that specifically seems to go out of its way to give respondents who are 50 and above. That's odd. The column for ages 18 and 34 and 35 to 49 all read NA, meaning there weren't at least 125 people who were part of the age group to participate in the poll. Are you telling me that the only people you could find were above? But hey, if this was using antiquated phones, meaning if they were using hardlines, maybe. I mean, I have a cell phone. I don't know anybody at this point that has a hardline with the exception of maybe my grandmother. And so if you're using those, then maybe the people you'll reach are older. But then that goes to the secondary question of why you're doing that. It's almost like you're doing that with the expected intention of reaching people who are older to arrive at a predetermined result. Just saying. It needs to be said. No, you can't necessarily make the assertion that that is exactly what's taking place. But in fact, that is exactly what is taking place. My point is this. It seems like they've gone out of their way to give respondents that are 50 and older. Either they didn't use cell phones, or there's a secondary thing of if they did use cell phones to make these calls. I guess my point is this. Whatever their methodology that they were using, they ended up with this result. And that is an odd result when you're comparing it to the rest of America, and is an odder result still when you know that the election that's coming up is going to include a generation of youth in the electoral system. This is an odd result. That's all. And this was the result that was put out to the American public as if Joe Biden was, king of the roost, Mr. Touchy-feely, running the place. Not so much. Confusingly, age breakdown were included in the how about questions, but since respondents were not asked about Sanders in the how about section, his support amongst 18 to 34, 35 to 49 age demographic in that part of the survey was not revealed. In 2016, Sanders' base was overwhelmingly made up of millennials and Gen Xers. Here's another one. Look at this one. Support among non-white supporters. Now, this is the narrative that they're pushing, Bernie Sanders doesn't have support among non-white voters. That Bernie Sanders could only get white voters, Bernie bros. Look at this. Are they incompetent, or are they intentionally being malicious and sinister? However, this wasn't the only poll that was misrepresented. Recently, MSNBC inaccurately reported on a mammoth poll in a graphic showing support for leading Democratic candidates among non-white voters. In the poll conducted between April 11th and April 15th, Sanders had a narrow edge over Biden, with 27% of respondents saying they would vote for the Vermont senator, compared with 25% of non-white voters saying they would vote for former President Joe Biden. Sanders ahead. However, as Twitter user Spitting Back discovered an MSNBC graphic describing that very same mammoth poll showed Biden leading Sanders among non-white voters by a margin of 28% to 27%. Are they incompetent, or is it intentional? Ed Schultz was fired from MSNBC because he was supporting Sanders. This is not friendly territory. So forgive my cynicism in asking, is it intentional or is it incompetence? Somebody needs to explain this to me, which one it is. This article was originally called CNN and MSNBC Caught Manipulating Poll Numbers to Give Joe Biden an Artificial Edge. But they kind of made the point that, look, we don't know that as a flat fact that they were maliciously doing this. I don't know that either, which is why I'm not saying that. I am asking the question, is it malicious or are they incompetent? Which one it is. And if incompetence continues to be used as this kind of scapegoat, at which point does incompetence become malicious? I end this here. I don't want this one to be long. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all.